governor takes all the money and tells them that he's developing something for the entire state. And the chairman said, listen, what you are developing for the state, we never made promise to the state. We have made promise to the electorate, this is what we are going to do. And the next thing that happened, the governor dissolved all the local government. And of course, just like what we are saying, how many of us shouted? In fact, when the local governments were dissolved, some of us who are even seated here, instead of condemning what the governor did, would have to lobby for his or her brother to be made a transitional chairman. That is encouraging what the governor has done. So the point I'm making is that basic education is very, very important. And if we must get it right, then we must not allow it to be in the hand of local government, because that is the foundation.
Professor Banya, I know that you've got an opinion here, and I'm going to ask you your thoughts on how we should restructure the education system when it comes to delivery across, as the Vice President pointed out, primary school being the ambit of local government, states dealing with secondary school, and tertiary education, the ambit of federal government. If you can come in, sir.
Well, I would suggest from experience that the whole thing starts from the top, that the ministries of education get properly professionally structured and professionally staffed. And secondly, that will reduce the confusion of having so many multiple agencies to do the same job. I am proud to say that I'm the author of the country's UBE, but I don't know what is happening now. But to say that when it all started, we're saying you don't even need a parastatal, because it was the example of Gambia and the rest of it, Ghana, that we used. But the moment I got in, not only was MPEC expanded, mass literacy was retained, nomadic education was retained, and UBE was supposed to be Nigeria's version of EFA, Education for All. But the ministry went ahead and set up another EFA secretariat. So the report here says, at least don't create parastatals for now.
But
I know how,
sir, if I can interject there,
you have to re-streamline.
People are asking for more parastatals to solve the education problem.
Yes. Whenever there is a problem, you must create a national or state commission for it. But that's what the pressure, even on me. Why did you recommend that? So I'm saying it will work better if you streamline the management down the line and empower the local government education committees. It is true things are bad at that level. Not only do they not hold elections, the elections must be won everywhere by the party in power in the state. So
what is needed to do that?
These are political things we just have to reckon with and return to the basics where local government, as we always say, is closer to the people. Let it be the delivery agent closest to the people.
How do we make that happen?
First, the political rearrangement to give the constitutional powers of the local government back to them. And secondly, staffing them in such a way that the workers there also have the same level of competence at every level, just as the political people will also have their level of authority as you have at every level. It is only then that you can have things, it's not just health. In the old northern region with native authority, the tertiary roads were tertiary government, agriculture, veterinary, immunization, all that, they were done perfectly. But the moment we took over at the state level what the local government should be doing, first we overburdened ourselves. So just streamline, beginning from the basics.
There you go, Miriam, the solution. Streamline from the basics. Will that work for you?
Well, my idea or my thought on the solution is about personal responsibility. We talk about teachers who are waiting for their reward in the hereafter. Could I please borrow your mic? Thank you. I think when I mention the word personal responsibility, I feel it is each and every person in this room's responsibility to go back to what made them what they are today. I don't know if I could conduct just, if you don't mind, a quick survey of everybody. How many of us were products of public schools in Nigeria, whether it's from the primary to the tertiary institutions? Mr. President, were you okay? The second question, how many of us today have or are ready to send our children or grandchildren to public schools? I think the solution, my answer, I sincerely believe.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I thank you for answering my question. I think that actually is the problem. There's no ownership. We have abandoned what made us what we are today. We look at schools, great schools, whether you talk about Harvard and other even secondary schools in the West and even in the Middle East and so on. When those who went through go back and invest in their alma mater, some have invested billions in the school. They have plowed back to make it great, and they take their children there because it's a thing of pride. They are successful because of what made them successful. That is what will make our universities, our secondary schools, and our primary schools, the public ones, great to what it was before. My father was a teacher. My mother was a teacher here in Nigeria. My father was a teacher of 2 former presidents. Whenever they meet him, I see them crouch down to greet him. And they always tell me how much they respect him for he contributed to making them what they are today. Forget about the corruption aspect, but made them proud. But it's about the respect. They look at the old school, the old boys' school, the Barewas and so on, that with pride they look back at the good old days of the schools they went through. When we take ownership of what made us what we are, I look at the school I graduated from, Federal Government College, Minna. Today, I'm trying to think, what can I do to contribute? So I have personal development courses and things that I offer, public speaking courses. I've organized with the school to go back and do my little contribution, my 2 cents, to help whatever way in giving them a sense of purpose, a sense of direction. One class had 120 students in it. Sincerely, it was really, really hard to try and conduct a simple course with a class that full. And I tried to think, how can a teacher do that?
Mariam,
but it is still possible.
Beautifully put, and I think everybody in this room can feel your passion and celebrates the fact that you are in the education system in Nigeria. Dr. King, you wanted to come in inspired by what Mariam has said.
I did. I do want to come in, both because of what Professor Abanya said and also Mariam. I think making sure that education is a responsibility, that education is a responsibility also of the local community and the parents is very, very, I think that's significant. And in fact, and also of giving schools, in fact, a little bit more accountability and married with incentives. And in fact, this is the principle of a project that the World Bank had funded in Lagos, which we found to be very successful, giving incentives to secondary education for very specific targets, very specific goals. Because I think and making sure that there are financial incentives, that they also get report and support for the kinds of things that they achieve. And secondly, what can we do to, in fact, make sure that local governments are more accountable for the responsibility for education? I think the message about monitoring, about data is very important. If we don't if we don't have real information from the local governments, then I think we will just be talking a lot about anecdotes, and we won't have the kind of instruments that we need to possibly marry or connect performance with financial resources.
So tracking of the execution within the education system, crucial. I know, Ambassador, when we were chatting before the broadcast started, we were talking about the budgeting system. The vision that the Vice President so eloquently set out earlier needs to be supported by a budget mechanism. And that budget mechanism needs to be tracked for delivery. Your thoughts on whether this process is an imminent reality?
Thank you. Before I speak about the budgeting mechanism, let me
Ambassador, sorry, please talk into your mic.
Okay.
Into your mic.
Just briefly, the issue of technology, science, technology, and innovation, which is what would interest our partners, the NESG, and the role of higher education in